Welcome back. I'm glad you didn't give up and made it to part 6. We're almost done. In this part, we'll be going over how to do some camera animation and finalizing our scene. By the way, if you want, you can download this entire project file on my Patreon, so consider becoming a member and get access to my past and future tutorial project files. Alright, without further ado, let's get started with the tutorial. Okay, now let's move on to the camera animation. So to add in your camera, we're just going to hit Shift A and then add in the camera. To go to the camera view, we can just click on this camera icon right here, which will take us to the camera view. We'll go to the object properties right here, and then I'm just going to move the location on the Z-axis up. And then we can move it a little back on the Y-axis, and then the rotation, control it this. So this is a static camera position, and if you hit play, this is what the animation would look like after you've rendered it out. So I don't really like static camera positions. I always want the camera to be moving in my animations. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna have we're gonna have 5 different camera moves for this animation here, or 5 different positions. For this animation, I'm gonna make it about 4 seconds long. And since we're rendering this animation at 24 frames per second, which is a more cinematic frame rate, we're gonna make the end frame 96, which is 4 seconds. So I'll hit the middle mouse button and drag the timeline like this, and then let's start animating the camera. So the starting position is going to be at the back. So let's move the camera towards the back, somewhere far, and then I'll rotate the camera. And we'll actually move it to the side. I don't want the ends of the walls here to show up. I don't really want that to be in view. So I'm actually going to select the camera and I'll just move it to the side like this. And make sure this is not in view. So let's actually move the camera a little closer so we don't, there we go. Now it's not in view. We'll actually move it a little down and move the camera up like this. And, rotate the camera a little more. And maybe a little up. Okay, there we go. This is going to be the starting position of my camera. So let's add in a keyframe for the starting position. Hover over the location, hit I on your keyboard, and the rotation, hit I. Now we'll move to the 1 second mark, which is 24 frames on our timeline. And we'll adjust the camera position to the second position. So let's move it over here, rotate the camera, something like this. Maybe move it back a little. Yep. And I think I like that. So this is going to be the second position. I'll just hover over the location, hit I, rotation, hit I. And then if you hit play, this is what the animation looks like. But I don't really like the animation interpolation right now. So we're going to have to change that. So just hover over your timeline, hit A, and then right click, and we'll change the interpolation mode to linear, which will keep the camera movement at a constant speed. Now we also need to change this entire setting in the Edit Preferences tab. So if you go to Animation, we need to go and make sure the default interpolation is not Bezier. We're going to change it to linear, which will keep all the animations at a constant speed instead of the smooth acceleration and deceleration that Bezier gives you. So we'll keep it at linear, and then we'll just hit Save Preferences, and then we'll X out of that. Okay, now let's move to the third position of our camera. So let's go to the 48 frame mark, which is 2 seconds, and then we'll just move the camera, and we're going to reveal the robot model a little bit more. So let me just undo that, sorry, and then let's rotate it like this. Yes. Something like here. And now we can see our robot model in our view. This works just fine. So this will be the third position. Just hit I and then I on your keyboard to add in that third, and you can play the animation. And this is what it's looking like. Don't worry if it's like a little, sharp for each transition. We'll smooth that out later. But right now, this is fine. Let's go to the fourth position, which is going to be 72. And for the fourth position, we're just going to have the camera, zoom out a little. So I'll just have the camera zoom out a little. And I think I like that. And then I'll just hit I and then I. And then let's play the animation. This is what it looks like. Okay. And then for the final position, we'll have the camera just zoom in on the face. So now we're just going to zoom in on the face. Zoom in like this. We'll actually have the robot turn its head as well. So I think something like this will work. We'll just hit I and then I in the location of rotation. And let's see what that looks like. Play the animation. And boom. Okay. So on 72, we'll have the robot start turning its head. So let's go into the pose mode by clicking on the armature, and then we'll click on the head. Let's go to the bone properties. We'll add a keyframe on the rotation by hitting I, and then we'll just turn the head completely. We can actually just zoom out or orbit out, and we'll just turn the head by hitting R and then Z on the keyboard, and we'll just turn it towards the camera. So I think that works. Yeah. And then we'll just hit I to add in that keyframe. Let's go back into object mode, select your camera. Let's go into the camera view, and let's play our animation. Starts turning head, boom. So you know what? I actually want the robot to start turning its head a little earlier. Select the armature. Let's go back into pose mode. And with these keyframes selected, we can just select them all. And we can just hit G on your keyboard, and we can just move them. We can start them at like frame 60 instead. Maybe even like frame 50. Boom. I actually want the head turn to be a little faster, so I'll just bring in this keyframe right here a little closer. So it'll be faster. There we go. Now we can just go back into object mode, select your camera, and now we need to smooth out these rough transitions on each position. So because right now it's a little sharp, and we're going to smooth it out. So to smooth it out, it's very easy. We can just go to the graph editor, and we'll zoom out. We can just make this a little bigger. You can hit home on your keyboard to see the graph a little better. Hit A to select all the keyframes, and then go to key, and then under density, we're just going to click on bake keyframes. And then all you have to do is hold Alt on your keyboard and then hit O 20 times. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 20 times, that'll smooth out the keyframes here. And if you play it now, it's a little more smoother. Okay, now let's go back to the timeline. And then just hit play. Now we're going to add one more small detail to our model. So I actually want the screen over here to be moving a little bit. So let's go ahead and click on, we can actually hide the armature to see our model a little better. Now let's go and click on our model. Let's go into the material properties right here, and we'll click on the screen. And then let's open up a new window actually. So click over on the top right corner, drag, open a new window. Let's go to the shader editor. Hit N, and I want to add a movement on the screen. So to do that, again, we're just going to use the two nodes by hitting Control T, bringing in the texture coordinate and mapping node. Okay, now if you move the location, you can see that the screen moves, and that's exactly what we want to do. So I'm actually going to have the screen start. Let's go to frame 1 for a second. Let's go orbit around our scene, and we'll actually have the screen start over here at 4.5, and then I'm just going to hit right click, insert keyframe. And then as the camera moves forward, let's go back into the camera view, hit play. As the camera moves forward, I'm going to have at frame 60, I'm going to have the screen go back to normal. So something like this. But I want the screen to go a little crazy 4 times. So like right here. Insert keyframe. See what that looks like. Boom. I want the animation to be smoother, so let's hit A, and then we'll right click. We'll change the interpolation to Bezier. There we go. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the animation. Now, at this point, you can just go ahead and have fun with the animation. You can go ahead and start adding in more robots if you feel like the animation feels a little empty. You can start filling out the frame a little bit, or you can just keep it as is if you want. You can also go ahead and change the color of your robot. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go and change the robot base material to something like blue. And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and start adding in some more robot models if you want. So I'll go and use the select box tool, and I'm going to go bring back the armature. I'm going to shift click the armature as well. And then I will just hit shift D to duplicate it and then escape to set it back in place. And then we'll use the move tool and we can just position it at a different spot, maybe back here. You want to make sure you delete the keyframes on the original armature right here, or not the original armature, the new armature. So make sure you delete the armature so it doesn't have the same, animation. So you can just hit A and then X to delete the keyframes, and now it won't have the same animation. We can actually change the color of this robot to a different color as well. So to do that, you just want to go to the materials, and right now the materials are linked to the first robot. So if you change the color right now, it's going to change the color of this robot as well. You don't want that. You want to click on this first, and now it'll separate the material, and now you can change the color of your new robot to something like, red. Then let's go back into the camera view, and you can see what that looks like. You can also add in more robots if you want as well. And so let's go ahead and just do that. Let's click on the robot, shift click the armature, and we can shift D to duplicate it, escape to set it back in place, and then we can just move the robot here, maybe have it back here. And we can also change the color by clicking on the robot. Again, make sure you click on this to separate the material, and then we'll change it to something like yellow. We can also change the positioning of this robot. You can change its pose actually by going into pose mode and just hitting RZ. And it doesn't have to be the same pose. We can also, let's go to like frame 70, and we can also just remove the screen animation for this as well by going back into object mode and then clicking on the screen. And then what you want to do is, again, separate the material. And then you can just remove the screen animation by clicking on the mapping node first, and then just right click, clear keyframes. And now it's just gone. Again, you can do the same for this robot as well. Click on the screen, click on this to separate the material, and then make sure you're on the frame where the animation is complete for the screen, and just right click, clear keyframes. And so now it'll make your robot unique because it has its own, screen animation. Okay, I still think the animation is missing more movement. So to add in more movement, let's add in some camera shake as well to sell the fact that these robots are traveling at a super fast speed, basically racing each other. So click on your camera. Let's go back to frame 1. And to add in shake to the camera, we need to go back to the graph editor here. And then we can just go over to the modifiers. We can add in something called a noise modifier. Okay? But that added a noise modifier to all the axes. So let's go open up the object transformation. Let's click on the Y and let's just remove the noise over there. And we'll also click on the Z, remove the noise over there. So it's only going to be shaking on the X axis up and down. But the shake is still way too strong. So let's go to the X rotation and we'll just, you can see the shake right here. Let's change the strength to something really low. Let's say 0.06. I think that's still too strong. Let's change it to 0.0, honestly 0.02. There we go. I think the noise modifier is also applied to the location. Yeah, so we want to remove the location as well. So delete the noise modifier on the location and the Y location and the Z location. So we only want it to be rotating on the X axis. There we go. What you can also do is add in some new screens for your other models right here. So again, you can click on, say your red robots, go to the screen here, and you can change this. So let's change it to something like, I'll change it to something like this. And that'll change up the face screen right here because I have different face textures for each of my models here. So I'll change this one as well. Change it to something like, I don't know, this. I also want to add in some more movement to the other robots to make it look like, this robot is beating them in the race. So to do that, I'm going to select my red robot right here, and I'm actually going to move it a little forward like this. I'll move this robot as well a little forward. Maybe this robot back. And then I'm going to select this armature right here. I'm going to go to the object properties, and then I'm going to hit I to add in a keyframe for this. I'll hit I to add in a keyframe for this, and I'll hit I to add in a keyframe for that robot. So now let's go select the first robot here, the red robot, and I'm going to go back to the timeline. And then let's go to the camera view. Let's see, let's go to the end right here. So 96, at frame 96, I'm going to move this back a little to make it look like this robot is winning. We'll just add in that keyframe on I, and then do the same with this. We'll move him, back here, and then just hit I. And for this, maybe we could move him back and then just hit I. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, there seems to be like a little bit of movement now. You know what? For this robot right here, I can make the movement a little more powerful. So I'm actually going to move it way back here to make it look like this robot is going really fast. And I'll just hit I. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, but I think you get the idea. It's just all about, customizing it to make it unique for you. You don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing here. I'm just messing around at this point because, I want to make the animation unique as possible. But this is up to you how you want to arrange your scene. But again, you can just look at it live like this. This is what it's looking like. All right, that's it for this part. For the next part, I'll teach you how to render out your final animation and save it on your computer using the Eevee render engine. We can also take a look at what it looks like in cycles if you want a more realistic look. Make sure you hit that like button if you're enjoying the tutorial series so far, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future tutorials. Okay, I'll see you all in the final part.